Hey, I'm Matt, and this is my garage. You know, I gotta say I'm sorry, man. It's been a long time, right? It's been a long time since I did a video. But I was doing more videos during COVID. COVID ended. I've been back in the office, you know, back to the daily grind. And these videos just kind of fell off my radar. And, you know, I also, I was doing an addition on the house, and I just got pulled in so many different directions. But, you know, it's good to be back. It's good to be doing a video. I think we left off on the 79 a long time ago. And I don't even remember exactly where we were with that. But what I can tell you is the motor's back in the car. And it's looking really good. So today I want to show you what that motor looks like in the car, show you the suspension underneath. It all came out really, really well. And I do have some old footage of when I was putting it back in, and I'm going to try to pull that stuff together and do a video and pop it up there so it kind of fills in some of the gaps between then and now. But today I want to talk about wiring. I've moved on. I went into the interior of the car and started tearing the whole thing out. The upholstery was completely trashed, so I want to get that redone. And while I was at it, I thought, you know what, I need to redo the wiring on this whole car, because it's really, really, it was really bad. I mean, it's a Lotus. Everybody goes into these old Lotus and they just, you know, they try to trace faults in the wiring and shorts, and they just mess everything up. So there's cut wires, there's broken wires, there's burnt wires, there's all kinds of stuff. So we're gonna look at that today, and I went a different direction as I pulled this stuff back together again. So I want to see what you think of that. Hopefully, you know, you guys get something out of it. But let me show you the back of the Lotus and what it looks like now. All right, here is what it looks like. Obviously that motor's back in there, right? Looks pretty good. It was hard to get in there. I've got some of it's dirty, man. It's really dusty. But, you know, it's there. The only thing left to do back here is, well, honestly, nothing. I could start this thing now if I wired it up. So it's good to go. Actually, I do need to connect the throttle cable. I kind of got it hanging out midair right there, and I need to get it over into that linkage on the carburetors. And to be honest with you, I don't know exactly how to hook that up properly with the right bracketry. So I got to look at some photos online and see what I can find. And I'm also kind of tempted. On the internet, there's a lot of companies that sell the throttle brackets for the Lotus carburetors, and they look really trick, man. They look good. They sit on, they mount on top of the carburetor, and it gives you a nice solid connection point for your throttle cable. So I'm looking into possibly getting one of those kits and putting it on here. But, you know, short of that, I got to tighten up some fuel lines, but everything's run. Coolant system is all hooked up. There's probably a few small hoses I need to hook up, and I think I have one vacuum line to hook up, but that's about it. So, you know what's really cool? Check this out. I love this view. Ready? I mean, that view under the car to me is just killer. Or if I can get closer. I like that. Now, obviously, I've got some heat insulation issues right there. That's hanging down. I need to button that up, and I need to get a silencer on the car. But, you know, that's all little stuff. That's, like, for me, punch list stuff. So I'm not that worried about it. But I'm looking forward to starting the motor up. But, you know, I've been tearing the wiring harness apart on the inside of the car. And that's kind of preventing me from wanting to get it running right now. Let me show you the inside. Not much left in here. Interior was in bad shape, man. You can see I've got the main dash panel in there, And I put that back in only because I'm mocking up the wiring system right now, the wiring harnesses, and getting the lengths right. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a little bit. So that's why that's in there. But all that's got to come back out, go out for reupholstering. You know, there's the harness that goes to the engine compartment of the car. So you got circuits in there for the motor, the air conditioning, the starter, the coil, etc. And then the rest of those are pretty much for the tail lights, stop lights, and the side lights and all that stuff. A lot of wires that go back to the lighting system of the car. Still have the AC hoses in there. I'm not going to take those out. I'll leave them right where they are, but I got them all disconnected. You know, the heater box is out of the car. There's nothing under the dash. Everything's stripped out. Just to see, you know, I wanted to be able to see what I was working with, and I'm going to rebuild that heater box. So yeah, that's what the inside of the car looks like. Doors. I'll tell you what, I have taken apart a number of Lotus doors and taken that window mechanism out, and the guide rail right there that the windows track up and down on, and trying to get that back together again so it moves freely on these cars is really, dude, it's hard. It's really hard. Every time I try to get it back together again, it seems like when I'm doing windows up or windows down, it reaches a point where it's just pushing too hard. It's not sliding easily, and there's so many moving adjustable parts in the setup of the alignment of the windows that I don't want to take it apart on this car because it's stock. It's never been removed. It works well, and I'm kind of thinking, you know, I'd love to take it apart and clean everything and make it, you know, have it looking really good. And then do the window frames when they're out of the door. But man, I don't know if I'm going to go there. Don't know if I'm going to go there. So stay tuned on that. But yeah, that's kind of where the car's at right now. Let me show you some of the wiring magic I've been working on. Well, I'm getting into wiring. And you know what? I started taking the interior of the Lotus Esprit apart, the 1979 Lotus Esprit. And when I got to the binnacle, I think I was going to lose my mind because trying to get this sucker out is so hard just due to the fact that the wiring is there aren't any connectors anywhere in the car. So you gotta pull the whole freaking wiring harness out of the car or disconnect every component in this binnacle to get it out of the car. Well, I did that, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, when I put this thing back together again, it sure would be nice to have connections to just simply place the binnacle on top of the dash, right? Connect the different connectors, and you're good to go, and that's it. And no fumbling with wires and trying to push some of the panels aside to get your hands in there to get everything hooked up, and then, you know, if something doesn't work, you've got to try to troubleshoot it, and you have no room in there to get gauges in there or to get some meters in there and try to figure out what's going on, and you can't see it. It's just a pain in the butt. So I like things easy, and even though I don't plan on taking it apart again after I get it back together again, still like the idea of knowing that I can when I want to. So here's what I did. All right. What you're looking at is a stripped binnacle. I took all the leather off. The leather was trash anyway. I need to have it redone. So I got this sucker stripped down, and I pulled all the wiring out. And what I did was I took each switch. I tested each switch. They all worked fine. I kind of got everything mocked up back in here. But the key to this is I took all the wiring, right? And I ran it to these, I bought these Clark wire harness connectors, and they're really nice, good stuff. And I've got, you know, you can get them for any gauge wire. As you can see here, I've got some 14 gauge wires that run to some of the components on the ignition and elsewhere, and I've got some 14 gauge grounds here that are coming into the binnacle. So it's nice to have the option to have a nice solid connector that's going to handle 14 gauge wires. And you can see here I've got a bunch of grounds that are kind of spliced together. I did that in a similar fashion as the original Lotus design. They kind of did the same thing. Works really well. I have good connectivity in the lines and continuity in all the grounds, so I feel good about that. And then I kind of worked it in sections, so I thought to myself, if I want to pull, I'm going to swing this around for a second. So let's say I want to pull just this panel out. I can do that now by just connecting these, pull this whole panel out, and the rest of the wiring stays. So they're not interconnected like they were on the original design. So that makes it a lot easier to troubleshoot and to put together for that matter. If I want to pull this side out, well, I've got this connection right here. And then you've got the temperature sensor that goes to the AC temperature control. This car had air conditioning, which is really cool, and that comes out with it. And you know, in the middle, for all the warning lights right here, I ran all those to one connector. And they're not hooked up right now, but you know, each one is the plug-in to the back of that warning light, and I've got each one labeled. And you know what I used? I'd never used this before, but I got to show you this. One of the challenges I ran into with wiring the car from scratch, which is essentially what I'm doing, is keeping track of all the wires. Now, I tried to use the same wire, the original wires, because they're the right color and the right stripe. So when you go back to the wiring schematics, it'll make sense. But you can't do that everywhere, because I'm putting in bulkhead connectors. I've got connectors here in the binnacle and elsewhere in the car. And sometimes the original wiring just wasn't going to work. Plus, I'm using a lot more relays than the original car had. And I need to beef up the gauge of the wires. So I went out and I got this really cool label maker, right? And it's not, the reason I bought this one is because it prints on shrink wrap tubing. So just like if you have a wire connection or terminal, you put shrink wrap on there, you heat it, and it forms nice and tightly to the wire. This does that with labels. So I'm able to label every single wire in the car at each terminal, so I know exactly what it is. So it doesn't really matter if I don't have the same colored wiring in the stripe color that the wiring diagram calls out for. I'll try to use a close wire, like if it's a blue with a white stripe, I'll use a blue wire. But then I'll label it, you know, it'll be like headlights, low beam, and it might say, in parentheses, I'll put like, blue is not B, because that's black. I forget what blue is. It might be U. I might label it UW, right, in parentheses. Whatever it's called in the schematics. So at least I have that cross-reference, and I'll know exactly which wire I'm talking about. So man, this thing has been awesome. I absolutely love it. It keeps you organized, and it takes so much confusion out of wiring and saves you so much time when you don't have to constantly go back and trace your wires and figure out what's going where and what's coming from where. The wiring connections are so easy now. So easy. And I can make sure it's nice and neat in the binnacle before I mount the binnacle back in the car. And not mess it all up when I'm trying to hook it up as I put it in. Alright, so I made this handy dandy little sucker. This is, on the 79, you've got relays all over the car. They're everywhere. And, you know, I'm not digging it. I don't like, I am a little silly that way. I like all my relays and my fuses in one place, right? And I like circuits to be somewhat independent. The original Lotus, so many circuits were shared that it made tracing faults in the wiring harness really, really difficult. Because, you know, you might have 4 or 5 circuits that at one point connect in with each other or other circuits. So if something went bad, tracing was super, super hard. So I like to separate those out as much as I can. But back to the relays, I wanted to have a couple locations in the car where I had my relays, and I wanted relays for everything. So I've got relays for windows up, I got relays for windows down, I got relays for high beams, I got relays for low beams, I got relays for the lift motors for the headlights. Anything in the car that has a motor, I put relays on it. So even the wiper, I put relays on that. Yeah, you need 2 relays because it's 2-speed wiper unit in there. Made this board. It's out of plastic, right? I heated it up, formed it, fits the car perfectly. It's molded really nice. It'll basically sit in the car. This will be against the bulkhead, and then the master cylinder's here, and then this mounts right in front of the left side headlight lift motor. And I've got relays here for headlights. I've got 3 relays for the cooling fans, 1 relay for each fan. So that's nice. Want to make sure those circuits are working and they are strong. And then all the wires are underneath, so they'll be hidden. So when this thing's mounted in the car, if I need to change a relay, all I've got to do is just pull it out and pop it back in. These are my connections from the relays here, or sometimes, if it's a trigger, I've got a wire from the car coming in and then out to the trigger on the relay. And if I'm sending power from a relay, it's coming out to this connection block and then it's going out to the car. And I've got all these labeled with that shrink wrap, so it keeps everything just nice and organized and easy to install. So underneath, basically, all I've got coming from this are 3 items. I have trigger wires, which are right here. I've got wires that go to the fuse box, right here, each one on its own circuit, and then wires that go to the motors in the car. And that's it. So it makes it super easy, right? And of course I'll have a power and a ground that come into the fuse box, and that'll feed. Actually, one more thing, grounds are all right here. I have those running on the front. So when I'll just run a main ground wire to this, which will then in turn ground each one of these relays independently. So that's nice and clean, and I only have 1 major ground coming to this, so instead of like 15 ground wires. So that makes it really nice as well. Looks good in the car. Big upgrade from what was there. And I've also upgraded the fuse box. I've got a very modern fuse box with fuses for every circuit in the car. I think I've got like 29 circuits now. I have relays in the glove box. I can show you those. And then finally I've got a relay panel in the back of the car with some fuses in the back of the car. So 3 locations, right? I've got it under the hood in the front. I've got the fuse box there, and I've got this relay panel. And then in the glove box of the car, I've got all the relays that do the power windows in the car, and other motors inside the car. And then in the back of the car, relays for the fuel pump and the blower motor for the engine and something else back there, but I don't remember what it is. But yeah, got that panel back there. So 3 locations of the car makes it. This is the fuse box I've got for the car. It's MGI Speedwear, I think's the name of the company. I've got 15 fuses on there, and I've got my my flashers and my hazard relays integrated into this, so that makes it super nice. I don't have to have those shoved up under the steering column of the car anymore. And I have about 27 circuits that I can run throughout the car. So I've decided I was looking for a place to mount this thing. And let me tell you, there are not a lot of locations inside a Lotus Esprit where you can mount a fuse box. I looked, I tried many, and I couldn't find any that really worked. So, what did I do? I chose the panel that covers the HVAC assembly. This is under the front hood, and if you're looking at it in the car, the master cylinder is like right here. This is the left side of the car. Master cylinder is right here, and then the spare tire sits in front of this thing right out there. So mounted in the car, it'll sit like that. It looks good. I made some. I had to make some aluminum brackets to get the angle right, so it would sit in there nicely. And yeah, it's accessible when it's in the car. I've got to lean over the side of the car a little bit to get in there and pull it out, but You know, how often is that? That's not going to be very often. Coming out of this, real simple. I've got some wires that go to the ignition. This will go inside the car through a bulkhead connector. And then I've got wires on this side that, there's just two here. One is major power into the car, and then the other is a circuit I don't think I'm going to be using, because I forget what it's for. But it's something that Lotus, the Esprit, doesn't have. So really one major power wire coming in. So all those wires you saw from this sucker, remember this guy? All right, so in the car, you know, this bad boy's gonna look like this. So I've got easy connectivity between the two, and I'll have those wires all wrapped up, very nice and ordered, and you know, I think it's a good system, and it's not stock. Yeah, I get it. It's totally not stock, but that's not what I'm really trying to achieve here. I'm not trying to make everything exactly the way it was. I like to put the cars back together again and make improvements where I can, keeping the integrity of the original design, the original car. And I don't think keeping the integrity of original electronics is something that adds value to a car. I think having more modern, updated electronics that you can rely on actually makes the car a lot more enjoyable, and to me adds value. And the best part, right, when you finish and you turn the car on and everything works, that for me is going to be like, what? You know what I mean? That's going to be super, super rewarding. Here's the glove box. At least what's left of the original glove box. The high quality cardboard used by Lotus. Yeah, I'll give them this. It's light. Is it durable? No, not really. But anyway, so I have mounted a relay panel inside of here, and it's actually upside down. So inside of the glove box, I still have the bottom of the glove box available, and the way I've mounted these, the wires go out the back. I want to see the relays and the labels without the wires, right? Wires should all be behind the scenes. I had to retrofit the glove box, so I took a 1/4 inch piece of plastic, textured plastic, and cut that and fit it to the back of this glove box. And then I had to, using a jigsaw, I cut out the hole where the relays would slide through. And then I've got an aluminum L bracket in here, which mounts underneath through this 1/4 inch ABC plastic, and then the relay sockets screw into that. So they're very, very sturdy, right? And I put this extra little aluminum bar on the bottom so I could put my relay labels. So when you open the glove box, you can see exactly which relay is which, and it looks nice, it looks professional, it looks clean, it looks finished. So that's where I'm at with that. And right now, you know, I've probably got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 relays in the glove box. One in there for the stereo system, which I won't be using, but if one is needed in the future, you know, I always have it there, and then one extra which will just be there for future use as well. But I've got windows up, windows down left, windows up, windows down right. I've got heated rear screen. I've got the radiator fan, light relay. I've got the wiper motor relay, and I have the headlight delay relay in here. And one other, and I forget what the other is, but there's one more I have in here. So actually, there's 2 for the wiper motor. Yeah, I've got 2 in here for the wiper motor. So that's what these relays are. And then on the back, you know, real straightforward. So each one has a ground. Most get power through the fuse box. So I mounted a little, ground bus bar right there. So I have one major wire going into that bus bar, and then it distributes ground to all of these, which distributes it to the relay sockets. And then these are all coming from the fuse box, so they will provide power 12 volt power to each one of these, and well, yeah, I think these are either 12 volts in or they're sending power back out somewhere else in the car. I don't have the trigger switches wired up to these yet. They're wired currently to the items in the car, the triggers themselves. So then I need to run the wires to this, trim them to the right size, put the fittings on, and then I'll fit them in here. Once I get all the wires in, all the components in, and everything wired, you know, I want to trim everything to size perfectly, right? After I run my wiring harness. And then put the terminals on, then pull the whole thing out again. And then will be when I wrap the harness. So then, here's that relay panel sort of mocked up in the car, and look past all the wires that aren't hooked up and that are exposed, because all that stuff when it's run and hooked up is going to be hidden. But generally speaking, this is where that panel goes. It's going to mount up there nicely against the bulkhead. Got my relays, no wires showing, right? And then it also mounts right down there. You can see that little tab. It's going to bolt through the floor of the front of the car there, and then you can see all the ground wires right there. And then the fuse box kind of hangs out right there. All right, I want to show you this. On the left side of the screen, right over here, I've got a wiring diagram from the Turbo Esprit. So think like 1982, 83, 84, those years. And on, well, that'd be the left. On the right, I have the S2 1979 wiring diagram. So I was comparing these two because Lotus made some changes over the years to simplify things and make it more reliable. The one I want to focus on is I'm gonna zoom in on the S2 right here, and I'm looking at the headlight circuits. They had a changeover relay and a headlight flash relay. So this is when you flash the high beams, the motors on the headlight lift motors will pop up and pop back down. And this system is kind of redundant. You don't necessarily need the changeover relay. If I look over here, 82, 83 time frame, you'll see that the headlight flash relay is no longer in the wiring diagram, right? I mean the changeover relay is not in the wiring diagram anymore. They still have the headlight flash relay. They wire it up a little bit differently, but it performs the exact same function that these two relays did on the S2. So one of the changes I made was to eliminate the changeover relay, and I wired up the car more consistent with the later wiring diagrams. And you know, I tested it on the bench with the lift motors, and everything works perfectly. So, you know, that's one of the changes I made to simplify the wiring harnesses a little more. You see the flash relay gets power directly from the fuse box, comes in, and it's triggered. The dip switch on the steering column is exactly the same for both cars. The wiring diagrams are identical. This one, when you hit the dip, it sends power to the low beams, which in turn, right here, branches off and it triggers that headlight flash relay. And then when that is triggered, it sends power over here to the two lift motors. So that circuit works very, very well. In the older wiring diagram, when you triggered low beams, it would come up and trigger a flash relay. And then that flash relay would then trigger the lift motors. But at the same time, it was also sending power to a changeover relay. That was a bit redundant, and that was also sending power out to the lift motors. Not necessary. So this sucker's gone. no longer need it. All right, I wanted to show you this. This is a benchtop 12 volt power pack. It runs on AC, so it plugs into the wall and it converts to DC. And this is what I use to test all the circuits in the car on the bench before I put it all back together again. So all those relays I showed you on that relay board with all the wiring, on the bench here, I took that system, I hooked it up to the motor that particular circuit was going to run, and I tested everything with this 12 volt system here. And you know, it's got some leads. You can just plug these in and attach it to whatever it is you want to test. But I really like this because you can adjust the volts right here. So I can kick the volts down if I'm testing some LED circuits to mimic what a resistor would do in that circuit. Or I could kick the volts up to 12. I can also, when you have a circuit hooked up, you can adjust the amperage as well. And this will tell you if the circuit is controlled by volts or by current. So that's really nice to know. So if your circuit is pulling more current than it should, you'll see the volts drop off incredibly. The amperage pull on the circuit will go up, and it'll tell you that it's current controlled. And you know you've got something wrong. There could be a short, a cross wire, or something like that. So it really helps you diagnose all these different circuits independently on the benchtop before you put them back in the car. So when you wire up the car, everything's going to work when you turn it on. This one is by Kungber. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. But I think it was like $100, maybe somewhere around $100. I really don't remember. So that was a quick update with what I've been doing. Let me know what you think. Give me some comments. Am I on the wrong track with this rewiring of the S2, or do you guys like what I'm doing? I don't know. You know, I'm not an expert, not a certified technician, certified whatever. I am just a hobbyist that really enjoys working on these cars. So any comments, yeah, man, they're welcome. Love to hear what you guys think. All right, later.